Hello everybody, and how are you all? Sorry, I'll just turn that off because that's incorrect information. How are you all? I hope you're well, wherever you are in the world. Oh, and I think my phone is talking to me, and I'll just make it go quiet. Sorry about that. Just suddenly heard something chatting. It wasn't quite what I was expecting. There we go. I think we're sorted now. No, I don't want you to pause. Carry on. Strange piece of technology, isn't it? Anyway, keeping in theme with the previous stream where I had the hair bobbles, now I've got my hair up, and do you remember an old TV program called I Dream of Jeannie? Well, this reminds me of that, and yes, I will turn the chat back on. Sorry about that. There you go, chat's working now. Yes, the hair today, look, see, like I Dream of Jenny, but I can't make my ponytail go dingle, dingle, dingle with a funny bell sound to say that that's what I'm doing. It just doesn't. Oh well. Just checking that I haven't got something else that's still talking to me, like my headphones. I don't think they are. But I think it would be a good idea to check anyway, because I feel like something's talking to me. No, that one's off. That's all right. Must have just been imagining it. Anyway. Right. We are here. And I'm going to read you a story shortly, but I'm going to chat away for a few minutes first. Hopefully not all the time. What else? It was really the jigsaw puzzles. We were having jigsaw puzzles up here last time, and I've actually got some more jigsaw puzzles sorted, although I didn't actually have the right link there for you. So I shall see what I can do about that now. And let's see if I can remember the process, shall I? Let's get this jigsaw puzzle set up. Give it the link. And go, okay. And then go interact, which is the bit I need to do so I can set it up for you to actually work, except I need it to be turned on. That looks about the right number of puzzle pieces, and I shall give you the link. Copy link. Add out of the way. And so if you are here already, here is the link if you want to play the jigsaw puzzle. And that's the other thing I need to bring up is, what's it called? I know what it's called. Sorry, I'm just going to shut another couple of tabs on my browser over there and open up the bit that I need, which I had forgotten about, so that I can just give you the link whenever I need to. It's called, yes. I think that's the one. We'll see. Yes, that looks like exactly the one I need. Oops, nearly there. So many things. I am getting a list together of the things I need to add. The things are great to have you here, Jonathan. No worries if you're at work and needing to lurk. That is all fine by me. Just, it's lovely to know that there's friends here. I'm looking for something. What am I looking for? Oh yes, chat commands, so that I can give you a link for when we do a jigsaw puzzle, and I can just type in, or anyone can type in whatever the current one is. I'll get this link again for you. That's this one, and put it in here. I just have to remember to add it each time we have it in the chat. So there you go. And it's working. And don't worry about whether or not you're actually working it or not. That's okay. Right. I think we're there. Goodness me. I had so many things I was trying to sort out today. I had to host a Zoom meeting. Me and another lady were hosting it today. I do it every second week. It's a social chit chat for a bunch of people who, like me, are not great at social cues and things like that. And just sort of part of your role as host is helping other people to recognise when somebody needs to be allowed to talk, because you've been talking for a fair while yourself, but we have to do that for ourselves as well. So it can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge, but it's lots of fun, and it's a great bit of socialising for some people who otherwise don't socialise quite so easily. What was I going to tell you about that? No, just that I've been really busy, and I've been also learning more things I can modify on my stream, such as, like last time I had the jigsaw puzzle going, which we've got going again, and I've also got a window open on my browser so I can give you another one, and I've got a list of puzzles that I can put in that I need to update the command link for. Here's the command link, so you can actually see what to do yourselves. That's what you do. I might just edit the words on that slightly. That's better. Right. What else? And I remember to turn chat on, so that's good. And I know that works because Jonathan has already said hi and that he's lurking. Work away, but I hope it's not too stressful for you. What else? I'm sure there was something else. I suppose we better get reading. I'm doing this weird thing with my hair at the moment just because I've got these new hair ties, and it's a way for me to just sort of keep it a little bit different, vary it a little. If you're watching over on YouTube and you want to be able to play jigsaws while I read, and I keep pointing up here and you have no idea what I'm pointing at because I usually trim the videos, find the link for my Twitch channel. It is on my About Me page on YouTube, and follow that link. Join Twitch if you hadn't already. It is free to join, and then follow me, which is the little heart button which you'll find under the screen, under the picture part of the main picture part of the screen, and that will mean that Twitch will tell you when I go live. And when I go live is when I'm going to now be putting up jigsaw puzzles for you to do. At the moment we're doing garden puzzles because we are reading a book about gardens, a particular garden. The garden in the story is called The Dream Girl's Garden. We've actually had her once in the story apart from in the introduction, but the rest of the time has been basically the different fairy creatures that live in the garden and what's going on there. So Jonathan's saying, final stretch, the courier has picked up for the day. Wonderful. It's great when you've caught the courier and now you can start to do the winding up the various bits and pieces that need to be concluded before the end of the work day on the end of the work week, hopefully it's the end of the work week being Friday. I hope you've all got a little bit of fun to look forward to. Casual, relaxing, whatever form of fun works best for you for this weekend. I hope, sorry, just being distracted by a little bit of black stuff on the front of my clothing, a flake of plastic or something that I've picked up from somewhere. I have no idea, just general distraction, which I'm very good at. In case I haven't said it before, I have ADHD, and it means that I can get lost in the middle of a sentence while I'm reading it out loud to you, and then I can't find it on the page for a while. Lots of laughs there. But it also means that I'll get halfway through a sentence when I'm talking and then suddenly go like, what was I actually talking about? And you're allowed to tell me. That's okay. Final stretch, courier is picked up for the day. Indeed, best feeling. Absolutely, it is the best feeling. I've had a fairly good week. I'm trying to think if there was anything particularly significant. I reviewed a fellow streamer's footage for some things he was a bit concerned about, which turned out to not be too much of a concern, so that was good. They were reviewing it themselves as well, but just for an independent set of eyes. And got the jigsaw puzzles working. That has been the great yay of this week. And also work-wise, I have also managed to sew up some cloth bags, which I've mentioned on some of my previous streams. My husband is a wood turner as well as a carpenter, and he makes all sorts of round things out of wood on a wood lathe. And the main thing that we do at the moment that we actually sell as part of our business is funeral urns for cremation ashes. And so when we send them off to funeral homes, type of business that is more likely to want them than anybody else's, I suppose. When we send them off to funeral homes, we pack them into a cardboard box with wood shavings as the packaging for the padding, instead of using bubble wrap, because we've got the wood shavings and it's a lot more eco-friendly. You can actually put the wood shavings in your garden. You can put it in your compost heap, you can give it to the neighbour, you can put it on the ground to stop the ground being quite so muddy if you want to in your backyard, all sorts of different things like that. But so that the wood shavings are not scratching the surface of the urn when it's in transit, I make up these calico, which is a type of cotton. I make up these cotton bags with a drawstring on them, and we put each urn into a cotton bag, and then we pack it into a box that's full of wood shavings and package it all up, and then the couriers come and take it away. So one of my jobs is making up these calico bags. Other jobs are taking photographs of urns with the right sort of studio style lighting from various sides, because the wood grain looks different from different sides of it with the light shining on it. And then edit those, crop them, put them up on the website with listings describing the urn, how big it is, what the volume of it is, so people can visualize it. And we've got a little Lego character called Bernard that I put in one of the photos for each urn these days, and that helps people to visualize how big it is. So you can write a description of something and write down what the measurements are for it, but unless someone actually gets out a ruler or a tape measure, and I'm just going to demonstrate, unless someone actually gets out a ruler or a tape measure, that's metric, that's imperial, which is inches, it's really, really, really hard for them to visualize just how big something is. And I'm just going to say, hi everybody, welcome. Thank you, Atkinson, for arriving with your raid and bunch of streamers that you've brought with you as your raid. So good to have you here. And now I can start talking about Codex, because we've got a Codex member here. Wonderful. Great to hear that you've been reading and you've been shooting at zombies. I'll just be reading and chatting. That's the other thing that I do, is chatting. I haven't quite got to the stage where I play games online yet, because most of the games that I play are not ones which have a lot of shooting or fighting or gardening type things, and I tend to play point and click adventure games where you've got to find things and put pieces together, little puzzly type ones, which aren't quite so gripping for other people watching. But glad you've been having fun. I am going to give everybody a couple of links now that Atkinson's here. Atkinson is one of our Codex readers. There's my link for Codex. Yes, I got it right. So I've just given you everybody a link for Codex, which is our Discord server. Codex is a group of readers who read public domain books. And as you've seen from what Atkinson has said, also do other things. Most of us. Some of us don't. But Codex members all read public domain books online, streaming. And that's the one big thing we have in common. And so we have a Discord server where you can chit-chat together. The Discord server is not just for Codex readers, it's also for other people who want to hear about who like reading old books, who like reading public domain books, like hearing them, want to make suggestions. But we have a book club, and book club is meeting on, technically it's Saturday for the world, but in New Zealand it's Sunday morning, and I'm not going to be able to be there just because of a prior commitment, technical commitment that I have, running some tech equipment for some people. You go and do that, Atkinson. That's great. Atkinson, just for those who are listening, not actually reading, that's okay. I'm going to load my VOD and then head to my bed. Enjoy the reading. That I shall do. I will give everybody a shout out for Atkinson's Twitch channel, just so that you can actually open that up on another browser page and then you can follow him. There you go. It's a great way to support each other. So that's what the Discord server is about. You can talk about books together. You can chat about other things as well. There's all sorts of things. There is the book club, but they've also got a movie club, which I haven't seen a lot happening with recently. But the current book that they're going to be discussing for book club on Saturday, for most of you, Sunday, for those of us in New Zealand and Australia and Japan, is Bartleby the Scrivener by Herman Melville, who's the guy who wrote Moby Dick. And the way that works is that it's a very, very short book. It's more of a booklet than a standard book, and you can actually pick it up through Project Gutenberg, which I should give you the link for. I've given you a link for Project Gutenberg. If you search there, you will find Bartleby the Scrivener, and you can download it for free and read it. That's the idea. So people have been submitting things to discuss, opinions and things like that. That's part of what happens during the month before book club. But also you will have 4 different readers, 4, maybe more, I think. Actually, no, it's more than that. There'll be different readers who are hosting through Twitch the book club, and some of us will be reading it. And then there'll be discussion, there'll be opinions about bits of it that they read that was significant to them or whatever else. Book club. So that's happening this weekend. And thank you for following. That's fabulous. Great to have you here. And what would you like me to call you if I say hi? Because I have a tendency to just call people by their first initial or something like that, or their last part of their name, whatever my brain latches on to. So whatever works for you. Oh, more followers, wonderful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for following. So far we've got Witchy Mama, Tristan, and I'm just making sure I read that correctly, and also Purple Justice 85. So we've got one of our chat members who I haven't seen so far this afternoon, but is often here. Their name is Coleslaw, written with a Q. And when they first arrived, I was actually in the middle of reading a chapter, which I don't usually interrupt except to explain story elements and aspects of it that way. And so I couldn't get my head around the way it was spelt initially, just because my brain does that. It's part of the ADHD brain. And so it meant I was like, oh, how do I say that? How do I say that? So in the end, I just said Q, called them Q, because that was the first letter of the way they wrote their name. And so when they join in on the jigsaw puzzles, that's what they call themselves, is Q. Just write the letter Q. So if I can't remember your name, I do apologise now, but I will probably find a way of letting you know who it is I'm talking to. And please don't be offended at that. It's not that I'm trying to missay your name. It's usually just because my brain is not good at working fast with some things and making them intelligible, if you want to put it, for want of a better way to put it, actually, not if you want to put it. So, right, all that excitement. So the other thing I was going to tell you about Codex is, for those who are still getting familiar with Codex, is that if you go to my About page on Twitch, if you're watching this on YouTube and this is all sounding rather intriguing and you want to find out, please come to my Twitch channel, follow me. You can subscribe too if you want to, and then read all the information on my About page. But on my About page, I've got links for all of our Codex readers, their Twitch channels, and so you can go through those links, follow all those wonderful readers, and also it'll give you something to do, to have a listen when they go online, or watch them when they're playing games, because a lot of them do play games. One of the cool things about if you do join the Discord as well is that you will actually get to see the little mini bios that a lot of the readers have put up there. there's an invitation for everybody to write their own introduction on the introduction channel on the Discord server, but there's also another channel there which is for the readers to introduce themselves, and it gives a little bit more information about their backgrounds. I haven't written mine yet. I suppose I should, since I'm actually an official reader in the team. So yeah, what about we get on with reading? Except that I should probably give you a link for this. Oh dear, where's the? I'm looking for my I'm going to have to give you a different link because that one has gone and lost its sorry, yes, I'm just getting confused here. That one has lost its invitation. No, it hasn't. I gave you the invitation for that one before. So you can play that puzzle. No, I accidentally clicked the wrong thing. I'm really having a day of it today, aren't I? So here we go. Interact. That's that. Correct. Yay. I will give you the jigsaw puzzle link for those who want to do the jigsaw. If you click on that link there, it will take you to a web page. While you're looking at the web page, you can move pieces around on the jigsaw puzzle and they will show up here where everybody can see it in the chat. Everybody who's watching on Twitch can see it. Sorry, my words, problem. And yeah, the YouTube people are not going to see it because they just get this video window and that's it. They miss out on a hang of a lot. It's a lot more fun when you come and do it live. Great. Good to see people using it. Yes, ignore the timer. We don't do anything based on timers over here at the moment just because, yeah, we don't need that pressure. My brain is just not doing so well this morning. There you go, this afternoon. One of the things I explained just a little bit earlier on before some of you arrived is I had to host a Zoom meeting. It's a fortnightly thing that I host and I attend it the other week of the fortnight. And it just sort of discombobulates my brain a little bit, which is a lovely North American word which just fits so well. Most of the odd words I know are actually English rather than North American or specifically American, but there are some words that I know quite well just because my aunt is Canadian, my mum's sister, she's Canadian, she's lived in Canada most of her life, and so when we talk together there's a tendency to get these sort of words. And she also comes from the same family which got me and the rest of the family into books. So I will introduce myself for those who haven't been here before. Hi, I'm Jev. I read old children's books like this, see, falling apart, and pages that are so thick that you could almost make a box out of them. I read the books because they're here. A lot of the time I'm actually having to read an ebook because the books that I'm reading are ones I remember, but they're not ones I currently have access to a physical copy of. I love ebooks and I love physical books. But I grew up reading a lot of old books because they were the books that my parents and my grandparents had. Often they were books they had received as gifts when they were children. Coming from a family that didn't have a lot of money, when you received a gift such as a book, you kept it, you valued it because they were worth too much to not look after. And so a lot of those things were passed on to me. And I've always had an appreciation for them. Love going into a secondhand bookshop. I can go into a secondhand bookshop with a list in my mind of books to look for, or at least ask about. Hopefully they've got a computer system that catalogues them. But as soon as I'm in the door and I can smell the books, my mind just goes blank and I just have to wander and enjoy. We've got a wonderful shop. I don't know if it's still in the place that it was, but last time I visited it, it was in one of the suburbs, one of the more central old suburbs of the city that I live near. And you go into this small old shop front and there's bookshelves down each side and there's tables stacked with books. There's a counter there, yeah, kind of hidden away. And then as you go further back, you've got these shelves that go floor to ceiling, Then you go back past the end of what used to be the shop, and you're now in what was the shopkeeper's home behind the shop, but it's still part of the same premises these days. And the ceiling is a lot higher, and they've put floor to ceiling shelves in, and they've put a little walkway around and the stairs that go up to it, and you've got to be a little bit careful, and there's some little rickety bridges out of timber and all sorts of things from one part to the other, and up and down to get to different. It was fascinating, it really was. I even found some books that I wanted because I'd been there we spent hours there. I was there long enough to actually recall the ones that I was looking for. So that was fantastic. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Bookshops, old bookshops, secondhand bookshops, especially really old books, are one of my favourite places to be. So continuing the introduction, which this is my usual off the rails type thing, continuing my introduction, I have 3 tips for any newcomers. 1, make sure you have something to drink handy. Always have water, because water is what keeps your brain and your body going. And I have water with me. I also happen to have a drink that I really like, which is coffee. And I haven't finished this coffee yet, so I'll be sipping on that as I read. You can have whatever is your favourite drink, that if you're allowed to have it at the time of day it is for wherever you are. If it was during the day, yes, coffee. It might be that in the evening you might want to have a hot chocolate or something like that if coffee keeps you awake. So it's your choice, as long as you don't get yourself into trouble for having something that you shouldn't at the time of day it is for you. Like half a bottle of vodka when you're at work is probably not a good idea. I am not advocating that. But otherwise, choose your own drink. So first tip, water or drink. Second tip, snacks. I have New Zealand snack logs. They are a little wee, like a granola or a muesli bar, but they're a lot smaller than normal, quite dense, with seeds, not rolled oats and that sort of thing, with a white chocolate coating on them. So that's yummy. That's mine. So first, drinks. Second, snacks. Third, somewhere comfortable to sit. These 3 tips are as much for me as they are for everybody else who's listening. So this is my reminder about comfortable seats. This is my lovely purple cushion with the black flocked pattern on it. This would drive my son nuts if I was doing this to him in front of him, because the sound and the texture of that sort of velvety stuff just does weird things to his nerves. I can understand that, but it doesn't do them to mine. Other things do that. Anyway, so those are the 3 tips. If you are here and you need to work, such as Jonathan, who's already actually hit the lurk button, you're most welcome to. There's not a problem with that. I'm quite happy to natter away to myself, apparently, even though I'm talking to other people, but also read as if it sounds like I'm talking to myself. I don't have a problem with that at all. But if you need to be working, such as Jonathan's still at work because it's only 3:30 here in New Zealand, or if you're studying and you need something to listen to while you study, or doing something else like housework or whatever, as long as it's not going to get you in trouble, that is fine. There will not be a test or an exam after this to check that you've been listening. I will occasionally ask questions which you are most welcome to answer. Just type in the chat. It's not unusual for me to understand words that a lot of other people don't, just because of my extensive reading of old books and living next door to my grandparents on both sides of the family for quite a number of years, being very familiar with old ways of doing things. And the world is changing a lot faster than it used to change. So when I was little, as you can see, I've got grey hair. This is naturally grey hair. So I'm getting on a little bit compared with some people. But when I was little, we lived in the little holiday home that one of my sets of grandparents were living in at the time. It didn't have electricity. We used candles or hurricane lanterns. Because we didn't have electricity, we didn't have a pump to provide the water from the rainwater tank, because we were not in an area that had municipal supplied water. So that meant that the water tank was lower than the roof, but higher than the tap. The one tap that was above the kitchen sink. And the tap was fed by gravity. So you turned the tap on and the pressure of gravity would push the water out of the tap. We had not a long drop toilet, we had a bucket and bury it toilet in a little outhouse, things like that. So, but because life back then didn't change as fast as it does now, there's a lot of aspects of old stories which make a lot of sense to me, which don't necessarily make sense to younger people. So there's a tendency for me to explain things, as I have just done again, but also for me to actually be even more familiar with old words than some of my listeners. Occasionally I will be stumped, or I will come across a word which I think I know the meaning of, but I would prefer clarity on it, in which case I'll ask you to look it up and type the definition in the chat. So please do. You can even have a race for it if you want. I don't mind at all. Because there's a lot of words I learnt from reading rather than from school. I may have some unique pronunciations, apart from the fact that I have a Kiwi accent. But that's all part of the game. It's all part of the fun of what goes on when you're here listening to me reading books, butchering the words. The dominance of the books that I read are English rather than North American, just because that's where most of the books that my family have originally were printed. The current book, though, is very unusual. Sorry, I'm just turning around to take my slippers off because my feet are getting hot. The current book I'm reading is an unusual one, and it is a children's book written by a New Zealand author back in the 1920s, I think. And I think that's probably brought me right up to date with where we are on the story, and I can get started. I will give you another jigsaw puzzle once we get to that. I will hit pause on the reading and give you the link and set it all up for you. But until then, carry on. Right, so The Dream Girl's Garden by Edith Howes, and we are reading the chapter called Blossom and Robin. This book doesn't have chapter numbers, and I'm not going to try and guess at what chapter number we're up to, just because it will be wrong whatever it is I say it is. So I'm just going to read it. So, Blossom and Robin. Careless, laughing, thoughtless Robin had hurt his pretty playmate Blossom. At the last picnic in the ferny glade, he had stayed all day with Perlican, daintiest of fairy damsels, leaving Blossom to wander by herself. Oh, poor Blossom. She had not deserved such treatment, for never had she been unkind to him. No wonder she felt sad and very much offended. She sat among the honeysuckle and pulled the petals off a daisy, watching each forlornly as it fluttered past her feet. Each of the petals, obviously. He loves me not. He loves me not. Ah, I knew it. He loves me not. That petal was the last. He loves me not. Two bright tears gathered in her downcast eyes and fell into a nasturtium upturned below, and the daisy heart dropped from her hands. Where the tears rolled down the satin sides of the nasturtium, streaks of carmine and gold sprang out, for a fairy's tears are so magical that everything they touch must turn to loveliness. Sorry, just finding the right place on the sentence. But Blossom did not see this, for a chuckle of laughter had startled her. Ha ha! He loves me not. Who is it that loves you not, pretty one? She looked up sharply, shaking her shining head to chase all signs of tears away, and hoping with all her heart that the laugher had not seen them. For it was Robin. He peered at her over the edge of a honeysuckle leaf, chuckling still. Caught Blossom, he said. Who is it that loves you not? Oh, go away, she cried pettishly. Go away, Sir Robin Impertinence. Can't I play by myself? What have my games to do with you? Games? Chuckled Robin. Why, I saw... He stopped, for Blossom's cheeks had flushed to the red of the honeysuckle buds, and her eyes flashed lightnings at him. Always poking in when you are not wanted, she said, for she could not bear him to say what he had seen. Go away, she said. Testy morning, isn't it? Laughed Robin. Ta-ta then. See you in better mood next time. He went off, skipping down the stems and sliding down the leaves and singing in his happy boyish voice, Be merry, oh, be merry all the way. He did not turn his head before he spread his wings and flew across the garden to find another playmate, so he did not see the lightnings of Blossom's eyes fade into disappointment as she watched him take her at her word and go. Oh dear, how sad. I'm just looking to see... I've got the right picture ready to go for the next bit. That's good. Turning a page. But Robin had seen the tears, and though he played and sang all day and was as happy as ever, there was a question in his mind beneath it all. Who was it that loved her not? Somehow that was a very interesting question. The tears, how strange it was to see them in the eyes of pretty Blossom, and for someone, too, who loved her not. He would like to find that fellow out and tell him what he thought of him. The thick-headed, foolish one, how he despised and hated him, that he might not love Blossom. He doesn't realise he's talking about himself, obviously. If he did come across him. What nonsense is all this, he said, and shook himself together and sang loudly, Be merry, oh, be merry all the way. What had tears to do with him? He who laughed his carefree hours into days, his days into carefree years. He would forget it all. But somehow he could not forget it all. As the days went by, he found himself always watching Blossom, always wondering for whom the shining tears had been shed. How pretty she was and how sweet, his little playmate of the flowers, and yet she must needs weep for one who loved her not. Now, if it had been he, but she had flashed her lightnings at him and had bade him go. Impertinence, she had called him, and ever since she had flouted him as if she could not bear his face. The more he thought of it, the more vexed he grew. You do know what vexed means, don't you? It means kind of angry, cross, ticked off. His singing ceased, and he became so cross and disagreeable that no one wanted him about. I will find Perlican, he thought. She will talk to me. He found Perlican, but that curly-headed Paul stood by her, begging her to fly with him to where the tiger lilies bloomed and be his little playmate every day. At first she gazed away and would not answer him, but presently she put her hand in his and smiled adorably and promised to be his playmate every day, and they flew away together to where the tiger lilies bloomed, leaving Robin lonely where he stood. What if Blossom should smile on him as Perlican had smiled on Paul? But no, she clearly had no love for him. She did nothing but frown upon him now. He had a queer little pain at his heart, and he remembered the picnic day and understood, at last, how lonely Blossom had felt. What if he were the same thick-headed foolish one for whom her tears fell? He thought of her test and flew to find a daisy sitting cross-legged on a hollyhock. He pulled the petals one by one from the golden round, that's the centre of the flower, murmuring, She loves me not. She loves me, she loves me not. Ha! She loves me not. Caught, Sir Robin. Who is it that loves you or loves you not? Called a mocking voice. And Blossom swung herself onto the hollyhock above him, laughing disdainfully from her height. Now I'm going to find, yes, I am going to interrupt myself here, I'm going to find a picture of a hollyhock, because when I was growing up in New Zealand, yes, I live in New Zealand, I've lived most of my life in New Zealand, but when I was growing up, hollyhocks were not a common flower to be seen in gardens, because they were old-fashioned and people weren't growing a lot of old-fashioned flowers at the time. Just trying to find one that shows the way they grow as well as the flowers. Because part of the delights of having the internet is that we can find things out as we go. Copy image, no, save image, and then I can put it up for you. in the right place, once I've actually got this open in the right place, I can just save easily. That one's a better one. And then I shall show it to you, and you can see exactly the sort of pictures I'm talking about. And then I'll go back to the other picture for when I need it. This one here. Sorry, I'm looking over my book. It's on a little stand here, and it just covers the very bottom of my why is that not showing? There. Except I did have it, I just didn't see it. So because it's a similar colouring to the flowers over here. So these are hollyhocks. They're quite tall, and they grow. You have this stem of buds. These ones up here are buds, and these ones down here are flowers, and then down here will be ones that have already died off. And so he's sitting on one of the flowers lower down, and she's up on the stem above him. That's what that was about. And then we shall get on with the rest of the actual story. And once I have figured out which picture I am meant to be showing you there, and put it in the right place and get it to the right size and all of those sort of things, we're getting there. How's that puzzle going? Do I need to change it for another one yet or not? You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but if it's, like if it's too hard or anything like that, or you can ask me to do a fresh one for you. Not a problem. Right, carrying on with the story. Blossom swung herself onto the hollyhock above him, laughing disdainfully from her height. A light of hope flashed into Robin's eyes. He dropped the daisy and looked up at her. "She is the dearest one," he said. "No other in the garden is so sweet as she." "Oh, indeed," mocked Blossom, because she doesn't realise he means her, obviously. "Her hair is like the sun," he said. "Her eyes are like the moon at noon. Her wings are ringed with blue. Her voice is like the love call of a bird, and her smile would set me singing with delight." "Oh, indeed," said Blossom, but there was a little quiver in her voice. She thinks that he's talking about someone else. Oh dear. It's going to get worse before it gets better by the sound of it. "She frowns on me," he said, "because I saw her drop 2 tears that were more beautiful than other fairies' smiles. I wish those tears were for me." Blossom said nothing now, but lifted her gaze from him and was very still. "She said he loves me not, but I would tell her now, if I were he, that every daisy in the lawn would say, he loves her well." "Blossom, am I that thick-headed, foolish one?" And I'm going to give you the picture now. The book, I usually give you the pictures in the order that the book has them. Unfortunately, that means that the part of the story that this picture is from is actually at the beginning, that he was watching her. There's his head up here, looking over the leaves of the honeysuckle, and here she is with her daisy. She's pulling the petals off the centre of the daisy and dropping them. And the caption is, "She sat among the honeysuckle and pulled the petals off a daisy." But I'm going to leave that there for a minute just as I carry on reading. "She said he loves me not, but I would tell her now, if I were he, that every daisy in the lawn would say he loves her well. Blossom, am I that thick-headed, foolish one?" She turned her eyes on him and smiled adorably. "You are that same thick-headed, foolish one," she said, and set him singing with delight. "Be merry, oh, be merry all the way," he sang from bough to bough, and Blossom played with him all through the days. "Now that those two are friends again, we shall have peace and merriment once more," the other fairies said. It is dreadful when there are quarrels in the garden. And that's the end of that chapter. I never quite know how long they're going to be because I don't read ahead. I have read the story before many times when I was younger, quite a lot younger. But that doesn't mean that I necessarily remember all the details of how the story goes. So anyway, I shall carry on reading. Let me know in the chat if I don't see that the puzzle's finished. Let me know and I will get you the next one ready. I think that's the one. Not sure. We'll see. And then I'll paste into my thing here what the link is if anyone needs to pull it up again afterwards. Right, we'll carry on. So the next chapter is called The Tissue Paper Teacher. I don't get that one. Well, not sure. No, that doesn't make sense so far. I'm just going to see if I can find a definition for a name. Okay. Apparently, Ampa, which we had already before, is a name from Swahili, but the context in our story is that it's like a name that's used by an aunt or a grandmother or the nurse. You know, back in the days when children had someone who would attend to them because their parents were of a class that they could afford to pay somebody to look after them. I don't know. Anyway, like Aya in my Aya, the girl referred to in The Secret Garden. So that may be what it is here. It's just the only reason I'm asking is because the chapter starts with Ampa. Oh, okay. Now she's explained it. She didn't in the first chapter. She used it. Not very helpful. Thank you, Mrs. Author. We'll carry on. The Tissue Paper Teacher. Ampa had come to teach the dream girl, and the play girl came to have lessons too. Sorry, there was a comma in there. Let's read that one again correctly. Ampa had come to teach the dream girl, and the play girl had come to have lessons too. Ampa was the pet name the dream girl had somehow made up out of Auntie. That would have been nice to know 2 chapters ago. And the play girl's real name was Honor, Honor. Intriguing. The 2 little girls were great friends, and they had never been known to quarrel. They loved Ampa's school, as they called it, and they loved Ampa. Often in the middle of a lesson they would throw their arms around her neck and kiss her, and out in the garden they would hug her till she was breathless with squeezing and laughter. "You will squeeze me thin, you will squeeze me as thin as tissue paper," she would exclaim. "Then you would be a tissue paper teacher," the playgirl would say. Yes, the noise you can hear is me turning pages, actual pages. Wouldn't that be funny? And they would both laugh till they almost fell over. The dream girl would step back and look hard at Ampa. "I believe she is a little thinner already." And she would say, "Come on, let's squeeze her to tissue paper." And with that they would hug her harder than ever till she had to beg for mercy. One day Prickletop listened and peeped at them from his hiding place in a big Canterbury bell. That's another one of those spire type flowers, I think. No, Canterbury bells have these kind of like bell-shaped flowers that hang down. They're not as tall as hollyhocks. His eyes twinkled with mischief. "What a joke," he said. "Yes, a tissue paper teacher they shall have." Oh no, there's going to be panic. Flute and Swift were passing, and Prickletop called them in and told them his joke. "We must put all our magic together," he said. "I shall need your help." So they made magic all the morning. In the afternoon, Ampa and the 2 little girls carried their chairs out and had school in the garden. They were making a good behaviour book, because there are so many rules and they are so hard to remember just when they are most needed. In the book they already had 9 rules. Number 1, obey. Older people have learned how to live, and until you too are older, you must do as they tell you. I'm glad they put the explanations in because it makes it a lot more doable. Number 2, try to be unselfish. Give up the best seat or the nicest food or the best plaything to anyone who needs them more than you do. Being considerate. That's a good one. Number 3, tell the truth. A lie is a miserable thing, but the truth is brave and lovely. That's a different reason for it, but that's good. We'll go with it. Number 4, smile. Smilers make the world happy. Whiners make it a dreadful place. Number 5, if you feel cross, try to get over it. You can generally get over it by laughing at yourself and saying, what a goose I am to be cross over a little thing like that. Yes, truth is that it's very easy to get so caught up in the feeling that we forget whether or not it's actually an important issue to have that feeling that strongly about it. Often it's only a little thing rather than a really big thing. We blow it out of proportion. Number 6, be a good sport. A game is only a game, and it is foolish to be angry over it. Never mind if you lose, though you may have tried to win. If you are in trouble through being naughty, don't blame anybody else. Oh, no, that's number 7. Number 7, if you are in trouble through being naughty, don't blame anybody else. Blame yourself. Be brave over punishment. Basically, you've earned it if you are naughty. Number 8, be gentle. Roughness is almost sure to hurt somebody. And in my family, it was sure to hurt yourself, even though you were intending to hurt somebody else when you were being rough. Not such a good thing. Number 9, say kind things to people and say kind things about them. Cruel words leave scars in other people's minds long after you have forgotten what you said. Those are all quite apt, even if they're not entirely completely encapsulating something that you should or shouldn't do. The general tendency of direction of behaviour is not necessarily a bad thing. So there you good. There you good. There you go. Weird with words again. Yeah, I know. Sorry, just doing a little bit of stream housekeeping here. Speaking of stream housekeeping, are you a streamer? If you are a streamer, do you know to keep an eye on your community tab when you are streaming? That's the up there above your chat, if it's on the normal place where most people have it, on the right hand side. Below where it says stream chat, you've got all the chat happens. And then in the same bar where it says stream chat, there's an outline of 2 people. That's the community button. If you click that, it will show you everyone who is currently in your chat. So they might be on your main page, not watching the stream specifically, but they are accessing your chat. If there are any there that are bots and somebody gifts subscriptions to your chat while you're live, those bots are just as entitled to receive those subscriptions, and your real watchers, your real listeners, are missing out. That's a really good reason to make sure that you don't have bots in your chat. And also there are bots that sit quietly in chat and harvest people's information and then give it to whoever wrote the bot to sell. That's not a good thing either. So ban them. /ban space the username, and do it by copying and pasting the username. Wonderful. That was excellent. You got that puzzle done. Yay! Christchurch War Memorial Garden in Oxford, England. Fantastic. That's good to see. Would you like another one? I shall give you another one. I'm asking and then I'm telling. Sorry about that. We'll go have another go. Puzzle, and then I'll carry on reading. So that's just your tip for the day for things that you can do to keep your stream healthy. Squash the bots. Yeah. There's even a website where you can go and check on is that okay for number of puzzle pieces? That's 108 at the moment. Let me know if you'd prefer a different number, but you'll need to jump in quick because otherwise I will not have enough time to change it, because I can't change it once I've got it set up. No, no takers? Okay, we're doing it that size. And I shall get you the link because it's different each time. Here it comes. Copy link. Yay, link copied. Now I can get rid of the ad. I can give you the link so you can join in with the puzzle. There you go. And I can also put it in, if this one takes a little longer, then what you can do is anybody can actually type ! jigsaw, and the invite link for playing the puzzle will come up in chat. So if anyone didn't get that, they're most welcome to ask for it, and somebody in chat will actually put that up there for you if I don't catch it in time to actually do it. Sorry. So there you go. We'll carry on with reading. There was something I needed to look at. Yes, the pictures that we're going to be having coming up, and I need to make sure that I can see what they are. Yes, I really do try to actually have everything ready beforehand, but sometimes I don't do quite so well at it as others. Right, I know which one that one is. I've just got it up in an Explorer window handy. Here we go. So those are the rules, which are well and good. They're reasonable. No, I'd rephrase them completely these days and modify them slightly, but yeah, it's all right. Doesn't matter. So they had a little talk about each rule before they wrote it down. They had talked about number 9, which is say kind things to people, etc., etc., and were busily copying it from the little lightweight blackboard that Amper always hung on the tree for their outside lessons. Everybody was very quiet when suddenly the dream girl said, "I wonder how the first child brought itself up." Because they wouldn't have anyone to give them the rules, I suppose. It was a new thought. The playgirl looked up with startled eyes. "I wonder," she said. She didn't have any Amper to teach her how to be good. With that, they both rushed on Amper and hugged her. "My goodness gracious, go back to your work," cried Amper as soon as she could speak. "This isn't a kissing school." But she was kissing them all the time. "Yes, it is a kissing school," they laughed, delighted with the name. Amper gently pushed them off her knees and stood up. The two little girls stepped back and looked at her. "I wonder if she is any thinner." The playgirl remarked. "I believe she is," said the dream girl. "She will soon be a tissue paper teacher." "Yes, I am sure she is thin." She never finished the word. A queer little cry of fear came from her lips instead, for Amper was growing thinner before their very eyes, growing thinner so fast that already they could almost see through her. The joke was a joke no longer. It was a dreadful, terrible reality. Amper had become a tissue paper teacher. She stood there smiling as before, as broad and tall as ever as she had been, but so thin from back to front that the light showed through her face and hands, just as it does through tissue paper when you hold it up. Indeed, they looked exactly like pale pink tissue paper, her face and hands. Her clothes prevented the light from showing through her body, but that was as thin as her face. She was like a figure cut out of paper and hung about with clothes, like a paper doll. The first puff of wind would surely send her flat on her face. She stood there and said no word. Silent with horror, the two little girls stared at her and at each other, and then back at her again. "Amper!" the dream girl whispered at last, and "Amper!" the playgirl wailed. No reply. The tissue paper teacher did not even blink her eyelids, but stood there motionless and soundless, still faintly smiling. Oh dear, what's going on? Slowly they went a little nearer and peered at her more closely. Her clothes were tissue paper too. She was tissue paper through and through. The two threw themselves down on the grass and sobbed and cried and howled. Mummy had often told them that they squeezed Amper too hard and they might hurt her, and now they had done it. She was tissue paper. She couldn't even speak to them any more. They had lost Amper forever. How dreadful! Oh, how dreadful! They cried and cried. All the fairies came hurrying from flowers and bowers and swinging places in the trees. Whatever's the matter? They asked one another, for they had never heard the dream girl cry like that before. If at any time she was hurt, she always kept very still and tried hard not to cry. And if the tears would come, she would just make an odd face to stop them, and she never had wailed in this heartbroken, frightened way. What could be the matter? The two girls lay with their faces in the grass, still crying. Looking down on them from the branches of the chestnut tree were Prickletop and Flute and Swift, all with half frightened, half sorry eyes. Goldie Top flew to them. "What is the matter?" she asked. "What has happened to our dear dream girl?" This garden is a place highly populated by fairies because the dream girl loves it so much and imagines it being full of the fairies, and they often will come to her and talk with her and tell her about things. But not to anybody else, just to the dream girl, because she is so loving and helpful and friendly and open and really appreciates the garden. And so the fairies are now a little bit concerned because this is their person who looks after their garden and loves them very much. "What has happened to our dear dream girl?" For a moment no one spoke. Then Prickletop said, "It was all my fault. I asked Swift and Flute to help me. The dream girl said she would like a tissue paper teacher, so we made magic and gave her one. It was a joke. We didn't mean to do any harm. It was only the likeness of Amper that we changed into a tissue paper teacher. The real Amper, as you can see from here, sits asleep in her chair behind the tissue paper Amper. We put her to sleep with our magic." "Mischievous little monkeys," said Goldie Top. "Of course it would frighten the dream girl. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Take away that tissue paper thing and wake Amper at once before those children cry themselves sick." The three boy fairies looked dreadfully ashamed of themselves. "We can't, Goldie Top," they cried. "We put her to sleep, but we can't wake her up. However hard we try, our magic doesn't seem to be strong enough." "This is shocking," said Goldie Top. She flew back to the other fairies and told them the story. "We must make a big magic," she said. "Everyone must help." The fairies flew like the wind for their wands. In a moment they were back. Standing in a circle around Amper and the weeping children, they waved their wands and made their strongest magic. Slowly, slowly, Amper woke up. As she woke, the tissue paper teacher disappeared from sight. "Whatever is the matter?" asked Amper. "What are you crying for?" The children jumped up and stared at her. "She's alive again!" cried the dream girl joyfully. They rushed towards her, but stopped halfway, afraid to touch her. With a puzzled face, Amper reached for them and gathered them both into her arms. She certainly was not tissue paper now. "Tell me all about it," she said. "I seem to have been asleep." They told her. She looked more puzzled still. "I should think you've been asleep instead of me, asleep and dreaming, if you had not been crying so loudly when I woke," she said. "But your faces are pale and your eyes are red with weeping. Whatever can have happened?" The dream girl looked all around. "It must have been the fairies," she said, but of course not a fairy was to be seen. A day or two later, when the dream girl was playing alone in the garden, Goldie Top whispered the whole story to her. The dream girl told the playgirl and Amper. They all agreed that Prickletop was a mischievous little monkey. Oh dear, I don't think he'll be doing anything like that one again. Right, we're on to the next chapter, but I'm going to have a mouthful of coffee. Here's your opportunity to run off and go to the loo if you need to, while I make a lot of noise and open my snack log, because I need something to eat. It's been a while since I ate anything today, and I have a tendency to forget to eat sometimes. It's not such a good thing because I get to cooking dinner and I'm too hungry. This is what they look like when they're in the packets. They're yummy. And if you weren't here when I've explained them before, when I first saw them, when I first saw them, I looked at the shape that they were made in and I thought, I bet somebody has found their grandmother's or their mother's old gem iron. I'm not sure if they're a New Zealand speciality, but the brand, I think, is they probably are. Sorry, I started wrong on that. It's a brand called Tasty, T-A-S-T-I. I'll show you the packet again. There you go. Tasty snack logs, and this one is white chocolate and raspberry. I'll pull it out of the packet. Yes, it's making a lot of noise. So this is what they look like. So last time I showed them to the stream, I didn't have this camera, so they stayed blurry when I brought them up close. It's got white chocolate at the bottom, and then it's like a granola or muesli bar. It's just dipped in chocolate for the bottom, and then the darker patches on it are pieces of semi-dried raspberry. I'm going to put it back in the packet because it's going to get sticky on my thumb. And they're yummy. So they've got all sorts of seeds and other bits and pieces in them. A normal, what we would call a muesli bar, which North Americans, or Americans at least, call a granola bar, usually has rolled oats as the main ingredient. The very first ones I had didn't have chocolate years ago. They had, and the flavour is, on the old ones, was just apricot. Oh yes, Tasty is 100% full New Zealand. We do have some things that we produce for ourselves instead of just importing everything. Anyway, so when I very first saw them, the shape is slightly different now. They looked like they were made in somebody's grandmother's gem iron. I'll just find the picture for you. Yes, there's a picture. Exactly what I was looking for. No, not that one. It's still the same thing, but it's just this is a better angle. Because it also shows the scale since it's being held by somebody. Scroll through and find the image. I bet that that's saved as a WebM image, which means that I can't show it to you the way it is. Oh, no, it just hasn't, technically it hasn't finished downloading. Sometimes my browser has this bit of a hiccup that happens, and so it doesn't release it. But I happen to know because of the size of the image that it has actually finished. It's hiccuped in its brain. So I just take the extension, the download extension off it. So here you go. This is a gem iron. And originally they were cast iron, and they're heavy. They're quite solid. You wouldn't want someone to swing one and hit you with it or drop it. You wouldn't want to drop it on your toe. It would hurt. So you can see there's the edge of someone's hand here holding it. And you would pour a cake mixture into a cake-like mixture into it. Probably a little bit like a North American brownie type of mixture where it has a bit of rising in it, but it's not a cookie or a biscuit. We call them biscuits. North Americans call them cookies. But something that has that little slightly more cakey texture, and you pour it into the batter, the cake batter, into these shapes here, which are curved. I remember doing this last time I talked about gem irons. So you grease it, and then I think you get it hot, and then you pour the batter mixture into it, and then you put it in the oven, and they puff up a little bit. But they are these little finger-shaped, cross between a cake and a biscuit type thing. And the first time I ever had snack logs, that's exactly the shape they were. In fact, they were that exact same shape for such a long time that it was only in the last few years that they've actually changed the shape to probably something that's more effective for their manufacturing in the factory. I don't know, something like that. They'll have a reason for it. Some strange thing. Right, we'll get on with the rest of the story, shall we? I'm just checking. Yes, I do still have the right. Yes, a little bit like a Madeleine cookie. I haven't eaten them, but I've seen them before. And also, if you've ever watched the movie The Transporter, they make Madeleines in there. Yeah, a little bit like a cross between a cake and a biscuit is exactly it. Madeleines tend to have a more unique mold shape, like a shell or a loop, a rounded end on the mold for them. But these ones are sort of like half of a cylinder that's been cut in half down like that, and then they put the shape down. I don't know why, it just is the shape that they are. Probably it was efficient for making at the time. But it's funny, the memories that come to mind when you see something that reminds you. And that's just one of the ones that I remember. And I'm just going to have a look at my pictures again and see if I can bring up the picture at the right time for when the story gets to that point, because as I said before, the illustrations aren't always in the right place. Right, here we go. And you can keep chatting, that's cool. And playing the puzzle too, that's cool too. Oops. So, The Promise is our next chapter. The Promise. Summer had lingered long in the garden. The sun blazed early and late, till the very earth was hot. It doesn't get as hot as what it does in parts of New Zealand. The story is set. It feels like it's set in England because the flowers in the garden she talks about are English. The author, I think, was actually born in England but grew up in New Zealand. But it was quite common for New Zealanders to write stories that were set in England because that's the family background. That was what they used to hear about. But because of the style of the plants that she keeps talking about and the way the house was, my assumption has always been that this particular book is set in England. I know that some of the other ones I've read aren't. So here we go. Summer had lingered long in the garden. The sun blazed early and late, till the very earth was hot. There had never been so many ants and beetles and grubs about as there were this summer, so it was no wonder the thorn men were tired out. They had to guard the roses from these savage beasts, and they were kept hard at it every moment of the night. And now there were so many of the wild animals about, and they were so fierce and greedy that even in the daylight guard must be kept. The thorn men longed for sleep. Little Fairy Fidelity heard them yawning and sighing as she drew near to enjoy the perfume of a rose. She was rather friendly with the thorn men. She often said that though they could be very sharp if you crossed them, yet if you took them the right way they were harmless enough. "What is the matter?" she asked. "We are nearly dead with want of sleep," one replied, yawning so widely that Fairy Fidelity wondered if his head would ever close again. She knew it was rude to yawn in people's faces and that you should place your hand in front of your mouth if you really couldn't stop a yawn from coming. But the thorn man evidently didn't know this, or perhaps he was too sleepy to care. "The roses are all out and so are the wild beasts," said the second thorn man. "There is so much to do that we get scarcely any sleep. Things can't go on like this. They simply can't go on. Something must be done or we shall die at our posts." Oh, don't do that, begged Fairy Fidelity. She felt very sorry for them. I am not too busy today, she said. I will guard your roses while you sleep. Will you? Oh, will you really? Cried the thorn men both together, and they stretched themselves out on the leaves at once. Keep a sharp lookout for ants and grubs, said one as he closed his eyes. Next moment they were fast asleep, and I'm thinking this is where my next picture is. There they are. I think this is Fairy Fidelity here, and these are the thorn men fast asleep. They've got spears in their hands. I'm just trying to find the right place. Little Fidelity seated herself on a leaf and watched everything. Yes, so this is her here. The stems below, up which a wild beast might creep, the lovely curling of the rose petals above, and the quaint figures of the two little men between. They didn't say thank you, she thought. But perhaps they were too tired. Or perhaps they have never been taught their manners by the gentlest one. She's the lady who's the fairy that's in charge of all the other fairies. She was startled by the sound of her name called from above. Little Fairy Swift came flying through the air looking for her. Yeah. Looking for her. She held up her hand to warn him to be quiet, and he saw it at once and came down, leaning over the brim of a rose to talk to her. That's the picture there. He's leaning over the brim of the rose. Speak softly, she said. Sorry, I'm just going to turn that off because I'm finding it distracting. Speak softly, she said. Sorry. The thorn men are asleep. The white gnomes have sent a message inviting us to their caverns for the day, he said, speaking as softly as his eagerness would let him. Every fairy in the garden is going, and I was sent to find you and tell you to hurry. We are ready to start now. Oh dear, said Fairy Fidelity, and I have promised to guard the roses while the thorn men sleep. Wake them up, Swift advised. I couldn't do that, she said sadly. They are tired out. There are so many insects about just now, you know, and guard must be kept by day as well as by night. Trying to get the next page. See, this is how old the book is. The pages fall out, some of them. This one's been sellotaped in, and the sellotape, the sticky has given up, but it's also discoloured the paper underneath it. If you look at the back, that's just the discolouring coming through the page. But oh, I have been looking forward to this trip, and it has come now when I am not free. Leave the roses to look after themselves, said Swift. I don't suppose anything will hurt them. I can't do that either, she replied. I promised to watch them. But it will be such a glorious day in the caverns, and you know how kind the white gnomes are. They are pretty sure to give us a diamond each. I know, she said, and her face was full of disappointment. But I can't go. I just can't go. Please don't say any more. Swift, fly away and have a merry day with the others. Unwillingly at last he had to fly away and leaving her lonely there beside the sleeping thorn men. And alone she sat there all the day with only her sad thoughts for company. Not a fairy was left in the garden. I think it's garden that comes next. Yes, turning the page. It's not many words on the page. In the garden, and the whole place seemed dreadfully quiet and dull. Now and again a wild creature, ant or grub, started to climb up a stem, but finding a fairy in charge, slipped down again, very much ashamed of itself. The day grew hotter and hotter. She thought of the other fairies wandering gleefully in the cool underground caves of the mountains. The white gnomes would feast them and show them all the wonders of the mines and give a diamond to each at the end of the day. She had often heard about it all and wished that she might go, and now she had missed the treat. She could not help a few tears now and then as she thought of it. Yet she tried to be brave and cheerful, and she kept good watch. No insect reached a rose all that day, but you know how it is when you're doing other people's work. The time seems quite 100 times as long as it should if you were doing something you were keenly interested in, something of your own devising. So it was with Fidelity. All that day the minutes seemed hours, the hours weeks, and still the Thorn Men slept. At last one woke and stretched himself. Ah, yeah. He yawned, and he twisted himself about so comically that she burst out laughing, tired as she was. At that he sat up and stared at her and gazed all about him. "Wake up, brother," he shouted. "The sun is almost at its setting. We have slept all day, and here is this good little fairy Fidelity watching still. What a rest she has given us. Brother, we can never thank her enough." The other was wide awake now. "That is quite true," he said, "and she has kept good watch, for the roses are untouched. What a kindness! What a kindness! I feel new made. Fairy child, how shall we ever thank you?" "Don't try," she said. "I'm glad you are rested." And off she flew. But the Thorn Men's grateful words left a sweetness. Sorry. Just a moment. But the Thorn Men's grateful words left a sweetness in her heart that somehow kept her contented through all the splendid tales the fairies brought of their happy day. She could even bear to look upon the diamond which each had brought home on a slender chain of gold. So she wasn't too jealous. "I told the white gnomes why you had stayed behind," said Swift. "I hoped that they would give me a diamond to carry home to you, but they said nothing about it. So you shall have mine." "No, indeed, dear little Swift," she said. "I would not take your pretty diamond for the world." And she would not, though he tried hard to give it. The next morning 2 white gnomes appeared in the garden. "We are sent to invite Fairy Fidelity to spend this day in the caves, since she could not come yesterday," they said. "We are to take her there and see her safely home at night." Joyfully Fidelity set off with them. Outside the garden hedge they had a little golden carriage waiting. "Be seated," they said, and no sooner was she in than a door opened in the earth, and down a deep passage they all went merrily, the gnomes pulling the carriage, and so taking her to the caverns by a quick underground way known only to themselves. They came out in a great cave of glittering crystal, lit by millions of glowworms with their tiny lamps. Here the white gnomes awaited her. "Welcome, little keeper of your promise," they said. "You gave up your pleasure yesterday, but we hope to make you happy today." They did indeed make her happy. They feasted her, they showed her all their mines and caverns, their golden heaps and flashing diamonds, their silver and rubies and emeralds, their underground wells and streams and marble flowers. They sang and danced for her and treated her the whole day long as if she were some splendid queen who had come to visit them. Evening drew near, and the little golden carriage was brought for her return. "It has been such a happy, happy day," she said as she seated herself. "1,000 thanks are not enough for all I feel, you dear, kind gnomes." The gnomes came crowding close about her and drew a diamond necklace from a silver box and clasped it round her throat. "Little keeper of your promise," he said, "had you come yesterday, 1 diamond would have been your gift. Because you stayed, though it was hard to stay, we have strung many diamonds for your neck. Accept our gift in memory of a kindness bravely carried through." There you go. How's that? That was quite sweet, that one. She did it. She did what she had promised to do with no thought for reward. That's why they rewarded her. Isn't that lovely? Now, I'm just looking at this, seeing if I have enough time to read the next chapter or not. No, it's a little bit longer than I was expecting. I won't start another chapter, but we'll chat anyway. Now, glowworms. They talked about glowworms providing the light. Have you ever seen glowworms? When I was growing up, I lived at the other end of the bay that I now live in, and we had a little stream, we call it a creek, that went up the valley behind, that brought water down from the paddocks up behind us. And I remember my dad saying that when he was a kid, because he lived in the same place. When he was a child, you could walk up the stream as long as you were very, very quiet at night, and you would see the occasional glowworm underneath the edge of the bank of the stream, glowing away in the dark. But you had to be very, very quiet. Now I'm going to see if I can find you a marvelous photo. I will probably turn off my camera so that you can see it all. I kind of know the chap who took the photos, these photos. I'm just trying to find the one, there's a range of them that he's taken, of these photos. And I'm just wondering if I can show you. Glowworms are actually, it's hard to explain. Glowworms are an insect, a grub. They might not be an insect actually. And they are the larval form, and they, I think, they provide this light, and then they have a thread that hangs down that is sticky, and they catch the bugs that fly through the caves, and that's how they provide their own food. I'm just seeing if I could, I think this one. Yeah. I'm just trying to see if I can actually find a way that you can see one of his wonderful pictures. Because they really are. They are just mind-blowing. So this guy, he's a photographer, and he's taken photos at Hobbiton in New Zealand, and a whole lot of other places. He does photography for different tourism outfits and businesses. And one of the things that he has taken photos of is the caves in the Waitomo caves in Waitomo, which is a region in the Waikato, I think it is actually, in New Zealand. And they look like a starry night, these photographs of these glowworms. You can go there and visit them yourself as a tourist. You can go and have a tour. And part of the way you see them is you actually go in a boat in this river, which is in the caves. And that you hop into the boat, and then they take you out from where the lights are so you can see what you're doing to get into the boat. And then they move the boat down this river, and you see these gorgeous, gorgeous, the ceiling of the cave is just covered with these glowworms with the little threads hanging down. I'm just seeing if I can find, this is a version of one of his photos, and I'll just see if I can show it to you. There it is. Oh good, it has come up. It's not as clear as I would like to show you. but they're stunning. And I mean, when you're there, it's just like, oh, wow. So this is one of his pictures, but it's not actually the one I was thinking of. It's just that this is one I can show you. So this is the cave ceiling. The ceiling comes up across above you like this. And there's part of the wall going through, there's a tunnel, the tunnel carries on around the corner there. And this down here is the river that the boat is, that you are on. The boat is in. You are in the boat that's sitting on this. That's why this is blurry, is because this is a reflection in the surface of the river. And these are the glowworms in the ceiling of the cave up above you. And these lines of light that come down like that, that's because these are the threads that hang down that they catch their meals on. And it's absolutely stunning. So the thing to look for if you want to see pictures is I'm going to write the guy's name in here. And you can copy the text that I write for you and then put it into Google and look at the images section. So the guy's name is Sean Jeffers, and there are other countries that have glowworms, definitely. I'm not sure what they look like compared with ones in New Zealand, but we don't have fireflies. I saw them the first time ever that I can remember. I mean, I have lived in Canada for 6 months when I was really, really little, but I don't remember seeing fireflies then. It might have been the wrong time of year. But when we were in Europe in 2019, I saw fireflies. We were camping in this van that we had bought ourselves, and we had parked next to some trees by some woods. And I was looking out the door because the door was open, and I thought, out of the corner of my eye, I saw this flash of light, and I thought, what was that? You know, because sometimes especially if you wear glasses, sometimes your glasses will catch the light of something behind you and it'll flash into your eye. And I thought that was all it was. And then I saw it again, and then I saw it again. And then I suddenly realized I was looking at fireflies. I've never seen them before. It was so exciting. Anyway, so this guy's name is Sean Jeffers. If you look at the way I've spelt it in the chat there, you'll be able to copy that. And the place where these glowworms are, that there are so many of them, is Waitomo Caves. Waitomo. So if you put in Sean Jeffers and Waitomo Caves, I'm saying it in the most European way I can say it, so you can hear the sounds of the word, into Google, and then click on Images tab, you will see lots of photos, and you can go and have a look. He's actually got a photo gallery online. You can't download the photos from his gallery because he sells them, but you can actually see, there's a section where you can actually look at, if you look at the bit that's called commercial work or something like that, and you'll see a whole lot of his photos of the glowworm caves. They're stunning, and he got to spend a lot of time down there. In fact, there are parts of the caves that he got into that most people don't get to visit just because he was there at the right time and he was working with the people who it was for. I'm just going to put that jigsaw puzzle away. Well done. Gorgeous shot. That's another Japanese style garden, isn't it? I love that jigsaw puzzle. I'm going to have to start playing a few of these myself, I think. But yeah, if you have a look for Sean Jeffers, Waitomo Caves, you will come up with, or glowworms, Sean Jeffers and glowworms, you will see pages of them. In fact, some of the photos you'll see are people in a boat looking up at the ceiling, and what they've done is they've shone the light on the people and the boat, but not on the ceiling, because otherwise the glowworms turn off their lights. But it's stunning. So that's why when I'm reading this book, because obviously the author has actually been to places like Waitomo Caves and seen them. There's another place up north in New Zealand that also has glowworms, but I've not been to that one yet. I've been up north, but I haven't been to that particular set of caves. So the author has actually been there for her to be describing the glowworms as providing the light within the caves for the who were they? Gnomes? Yeah, the gnomes, the white gnomes. I would say that's because she has, possibly when she was a child, actually visited glowworm caves and seen them, and the image has stuck in her head of the glorious, amazing effect that this provides, having them like that. I'd be really interested to know actually if they are something that are in Canada. Maybe a regional thing too. They may be in parts of Canada but not in other parts, because I do know that there are caves in Canada. But they aren't all necessarily just in caves. The most common place that New Zealanders see them are at the Waitomo caves or these other ones up north. But that's because the temperature is very stable there. It doesn't change a lot because it's underground. There's always the water in the river going through, which means that there's a little bit of moisture there, which encourages the sort of insects that they feed on. But as I've pointed out, my dad and my grandfather used to say that there were glowworms up the riverbank, the bank of the creek, the stream that went up behind our house. And that's just the side of the hill, basically, and amongst the trees down underneath the edges of where the stream runs. And I've had somebody else say that they would sometimes see them when they were going through the bush. It has to be somewhere where there's a little bit of a slope that they can actually, the creature can be here and then it can run its thread down so that it can catch its food. Anyway, so enough about that. That's your educational section of today's stream. Somehow or other, we always seem to get a little bit of extra education going on there. And I've thoroughly enjoyed having all you extra people here and staying around with the raid coming through from Atkinson. And that's been really great. Just a reminder, if you want to hear more readers who read public domain books, such as the book I'm reading, although this one will be a bit harder to find, then join our Discord server, Codex. I'm just giving you the link. Join the Codex Discord server. We have a book club that is meeting online this weekend. And if you join the Discord server, you'll be able to find out when it is specifically for your own time zone. They'll tell you when it is with what zone they're in, and you can calculate it from there. Like I say, I won't be able to be part of it this time. Oh, wonderful. You think you may be, you're in Ontario. That would be really cool to actually just go and discover something like that over there, to find that we have this thing in common between the different places. So go and join the Codex Discord, but also if you want to see, I don't know if anyone else is streaming at the moment because of the time of day that it is in New Zealand compared with the rest of the world, but all the links for the other Codex readers are down below on my About page on Twitch. Have a scroll, click through all of those, follow them all. They would greatly appreciate having extra followers, more followers, new followers, people who love books. Like I said earlier on, not everybody just reads. I mean, I don't just read, I chat. But technically I'm here to read. But a lot of the other readers also play games. I know, for example, Goriki, he's one of the readers. He reads in the big holiday times because he's a teacher in Japan and he needs to have his voice functioning well for his work. So he doesn't read during term time, but during the big holidays, which is in summer and winter, they have 2 big holiday breaks. He reads books then, and the rest of the time he plays games and chats with other people. So, and it's a little bit like that for other ones of the streamers too. We'll have reading as part of what we do, but we have this one thing in common, and that's we read public domain books, which is great because otherwise they get lost. It's like they go out of circulation, you know, they're no longer viable, they're not used anymore, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, all of that and more. It would be great if you're watching this over on Twitch, if you would also go over to my YouTube channel, which I think I've got a link for, and follow me over there. Subscribe, it's called, over there. I do put my stories that I've read over here over onto YouTube, and then people can leave comments on them, which means that they're still visible afterwards, unlike on Twitch. Chat's gone once the stream is gone. I do have my own Discord server, so you're welcome to join that. It's probably the world's quietest Discord. I sometimes pull up the illustrations from the books if I remember to, and also we sometimes discuss what books we've got coming up or make suggestions and things like that. I also, the section, the channels that I've got there, I would love it if you would come and join actually. If you are listening to any of the stories and have learnt something new that really spoke to you, write something about it in that book's channel. If you were reminded of something from when you were growing up, a place, a thing, an activity or whatever, and you have something, or you come across a picture that reminds you of something in one of the books we've been reading, post it in the Discord server, in the relevant channel. That would be great, because the idea, I love the magic of books. One of the things that speaks to me a lot about books is their ability to take marks on a page, just little squiggly dark marks on a page, unless you're watching it on an e-reader with the page inverted, dark marks on a page, and draw pictures inside your head and inside my head and inside somebody else who's also reading's head, and the pictures will look slightly different in each of our heads, and yet we are still seeing these magical pictures in our head from these little marks on the page. And I think that's magic. Reading is magic. So there you go, that's my thought for the week. For the weekend, actually, I suppose. So go off, subscribe, follow, whatever, all of those wonderful things. Join up. All of those services are free unless you choose to actually put money into them, so it's not a problem. You can join them all. You can follow me everywhere you want. I'm on several different social media channels, like Instagram and Twitter and places like that. So you're welcome to follow me there and say hi, get into conversations, all that sort of stuff. What else? I think that's it. And I'll see you on Monday, my Monday. So once again, if you haven't been here before, I read 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, unless there's something else that I have to do, like taking my dad down to the hospital for a clinic appointment, that sort of thing. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. New Zealand time, and it will be whatever time it is for the time of year in New Zealand. So New Zealand summertime, I will read at 3 p.m. New Zealand winter time, I will read at 3 p.m. And if you are not sure what time that is for where you live, look on my Twitch schedule page and it will show you the time for you that I read in. So thank you for being here. It's great to have so many people here and part of it, playing the puzzles and all that sort of stuff. Great to see you again. For those of you who I've seen before, like Coleslaw and Rich Gay Aunt and Jonathan and Atkinson and so good to have you all here. I've loved being able to just share this very, very specifically Kiwi book. Not the personality of the book isn't Kiwi, but it's very definitely written by someone who is familiar with some aspects of being in New Zealand, hence the discussion of things like the glowworms and stuff. Yes, we have discovered they are in other places as well, but it's not uncommon for people in New Zealand, especially the older generation, to be so much more aware of them than most other people are, because we're a much more rural, not so much these days, but we used to be a very, very rural nation where everyone lived in or near a farm or lots of farms, and so there was a lot more sense of connection with the landscape around us, and it's created an aspect of who we are as a people. Anyway, so all of that to say thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again next time, and in the meantime, happy reading. Bye.